Earful Tower listeners, hello, it's another Monday in Paris. This week we've got a great episode. It is comedian Sebastian Marx. Now this is an American guy who lives in Paris and France. In fact, it's his birthday today, so let's start with that. He's 39 today on Monday, so if you are listening today, Sebastian, happy birthday. But before we get into this conversation about language, stand-up comedy, and of course Paris, I want to make a few corrections. One thing I mentioned in the episode is this German comedian who I called Henning Mankell. That is a Swedish crime writer. I was talking about Henning Venn, so don't get confused if you want to Google Henning Venn. The other thing I want to say is that Sebastian was talking about this theater, Théâtre Gymnase, which we did a walk show together right after the episode. We ended up in that theater. We ended up on the stage when it was closed to the public. It was really cool. So if you want to support this show and check it out on Patreon, so that's patreon.com/The Earful Tower, you can watch these shows live, or you can watch the replay of us popping into this theater. It was amazing. Anyway, on with the show. Sebastian's new comedy stand-up show is called The French Language Explained by an American. Check it out and enjoy this episode. And once again, happy birthday, Sebastian.
One man, one country, one red scooter. Here's the Earful Tower with Oliver G.
Seb Marx, welcome to the studio.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How are you feeling?
Good, I'm good.
There's you broke new ground in the Eiffel Tower history here because you were up here before I was.
Oh yeah.
What happened there?
Well, because I dropped my kids off. I wasn't on time before in my life, but now that I have kids, I have to be.
Right.
But despite myself, I don't want to necessarily be on time like this, but I am because I just dropped my kid off at the daycare, like crèche,
Yeah.
and then I just came over, and it just turned out to be 10 minutes earlier than
You were 10 minutes early.
Yeah.
Well,
I hung out with the super.
The gardien.
The gardien,
yeah.
who I guess is from another country. I think he's Portuguese.
He is Portuguese, yeah.
That would be the cliche that they have here in
Yeah,
Paris.
yeah.
And so, we chatted a little bit.
Nice guy,
when I say a
right?
little bit means 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But I don't think we really were able to communicate very well.
And then he let you up. He told you to go to the top floor.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, the radio,
Yeah.
English," because I guess he could tell that I had an accent. He was like, "Oh, English radio," and I was like, "Yeah."
And then you were up here.
Yeah,
That
I
was
up here.
amazing.
See,
Great.
that's what you can get when you have an accent. You can just get into places.
Do you mean he noticed that? He noticed that you had an accent that wasn't French? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and so I think he heard that I was an English speaker, and so he was like, "Oh, you must be here for the radio."
Yeah,
like even
right.
before I said anything. So.
Well, that's rich because he has an accent as well.
Yeah.
It's
So-
funny. He's made a few appearances on this show because he always walks past the door when
Yeah.
it's open, like we have it today in the heat. That's why you can hear the kids screaming in the background.
Yeah.
And he just goes. He doesn't care that it's a radio station. He just goes bonjour as he walks past.
So he's like a character now. Like he's like a running character.
I think I should try and make him more
You
of
should,
a character. Yeah. I've got to work on that. But I never know when he's going to walk by. You can't really ask an elderly man to come up 6 flights of steps.
That's true.
But you brought up a point that's something we should talk about, having an accent while speaking French.
Yep.
Now, I will have already introduced you, of course, at the start of this podcast, but if anyone tuned in a minute late, you're a comedian and you do a lot of your work in French
Yep.
and English now, but let's start on the French stuff.
Sure.
That's pretty a daring thing to do.
Yeah, daring and kind of stupid.
Is it stupid? Is it
No,
hard?
I mean, it was stupid in the beginning. I felt like in the sense that like when I started performing stand-up comedy pretty early when I arrived in France,
Right.
and it didn't work at first. I mean, like I tried I tried like 3 times.
Hang on, we need levels though. So when you started doing stand-up in French, what was your French out of 10?
Okay, well let's start from the beginning. When I came to France, I spoke 0 French.
Okay.
I wasn't in Paris. I was in Toulouse, in the southwest of France,
Okay.
for several years. And
And the scale, you have to remember the scale here. 0 is no French at all, and 10 out of 10 is for an expat. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
you're speaking French like a French person.
Okay.
That's the scale.
So I was 0
Okay.
when I came.
Right.
After 2 years, I was probably at 4 or 5.
Right.
And then so I tried. I was like, okay, that's enough to get up on stage.
At a
and make
4
it.
or 5, you went on stage.
Yeah,
didn't you?
yeah.
Wow.
And I was probably, okay, let's say 5 or 6, let's say. And I was like, yeah, this is enough to make people laugh, right?
Yeah.
And it was a, what would they say, approximatif, in the sense
Right.
like, I think it was people were laughing more at me than with me.
Right,
or they were
right,
just
right.
laughing at the craziness
Just
of it.
the concept
Yeah,
of
just
it,
like,
yeah.
wow, this guy is trying to speak to us in French. And so they got like 2 jokes, but like I was too much. It just sounded like a 7-year-old reciting a poem.
Sure.
It was just like, okay.
Did someone help you write the jokes as well? Or
Yeah,
did you,
my ex at the time. And she didn't help me write the jokes. She helped like
Translate them.
correct
Yeah,
them.
right, right.
So I wrote it in French. I wrote it. I usually write directly. If I'm gonna write a joke in French, I usually write it directly in French. If I'm going to perform a joke in French, I try to write in the language I'm going to perform in.
Sure.
Sometimes I don't know ahead of time if the joke is going to work more in French or in English. That I usually find out by performing it on stage. But with this, I needed correction just to make sure that it was understandable, the concept of the joke. So that I got a little help with. But yeah, I think my accent was just too heavy. And I was expecting to have tons of laughter, and I got minimal.
But I think it's really cool that you started before you're ready, because if you had, if you had to have waited until your French was 10 out of 10, I don't know, is it 10 out of 10 now?
I think
it sounds pretty good.
It's pretty good, yeah. I mean, but at the same time, there's definitely the sentence structure I'm still screwed up with. I mean, I still don't know if it's attendre de quelqu'un à quelqu'un. Those little words I still screw up, and the
you have to think about that now that you're getting early to places and waiting for people.
Yeah. I have to say I'm waiting for, or I'm waiting at. So all that is still, there's still this margin that I definitely feel is different between me and every other real French speaker. So I'm probably, let's say, like an 8 or 9 out of 10.
Right. Okay.
I'm not totally bilingual. I am bilingual, but I'm not. You can hear after 3 words that I'm not French.
But I think anyone, I've seen your stuff. You go up on a crowd in French. What's the biggest crowd you've done in French?
Probably 2,000.
So you're talking to 2,000 people live, trying to make them laugh in French. I'm going to give you a 10 out of 10.
Okay.
That's an earful 10 out of 10 for you, right?
All right. I'll accept it.
That's guts
sure.
of steel to do that.
No, but there's 2 different things. Guts is one thing. When I was performing at Toulouse, I had lots of guts.
Right.
But I didn't necessarily have the level.
That's true.
That was.
But you
necessary.
think a lot of people who listen to this show who maybe live abroad in America or Australia or something, they come to France and they're very scared to just say bonjour to people. Yeah. So to think that you've taken it first in Toulouse and even now to audiences of 2,000, it's a frightful concept.
Yeah.
Or frightening concept.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to it now. Yeah. I mean, it took a while, but it took years, to really to get comfortable on stage in French. That just took. Yeah. So I mean, this a few times in Toulouse, I just okay, this is perhaps not for me. Because when the owner of the club at the time says this is just ça se fait pas, which is a very typical expression, which means it's just not done, literally. Yeah. But it means you shouldn't be doing this. Yeah. And he was just performing comedy in another language is just ça se fait pas. You shouldn't really do it. And so I think he was trying to discourage me. But for me, when someone says that, it's just kind of oh no, I have to prove this guy wrong
now. Michael Jordan getting cut from his high school basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
You're the Michael Jordan of French comedy for an Englishman or an American man. What about, have you seen these comedians, Gad Elmaleh?
Yeah.
Doing stuff in English now.
Yeah.
Do you know the guy?
I do. I know him actually personally now.
And I mean, what are your thoughts on him doing it in?
Well, it's great. I mean, I think anytime that there's someone doing this language exchange stand-up thing is cool because it's making the world smaller. Gad, I mean, his English level is very good. I mean, I think I
saw him on Comedians in Cars getting coffee.
Yeah, and you saw how well he spoke. I mean, he speaks really well. I don't know. I feel he had a kind of the basics down because he lived in Montreal.
Right.
And living in Montreal, you kind of, have to know some English and at least have the good accent. I don't know if you've heard people from Montreal speak English or when they use English words in French, which they do a lot, they pronounce it as an American rather than how the French do. They pronounce their English words à la française. And so that's the difference. So they have this accent already there. And I think God already had kind of the basics down already, at least accent-wise.
Have you heard of Henning Mankell, I think his name is? German guy that performs in England, a lot of those chat shows.
No, I don't know.
He speaks excellent English. I mean, excellent, and all the sayings and similes and metaphors and stuff, but he has an outrageously strong German accent.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's putting it on, but it's amazing too.
Yeah. But so he speaks perfectly, but just with a heavy accent.
Exactly. So it's when you're watching it, you're thinking he talks like an English person, but sounds like a German person. Yeah, so it adds an extra layer.
That's great.
Which I guess is, I mean, you're.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely know. I surprise French people with the expressions I know.
Yeah.
And that's just because you live here a while, and I know probably more slang than I know real proper French words.
Can you teach me any good slang?
Well, I just did a set yesterday morning, and I said la tête dans le cul, which I think you probably know, which literally means your head in your ass.
Right.
And I use this as a definition of jet lagged, is l'avoir la tête dans le cul. Right, so your head in your ass, meaning your I don't even know what it would be in English. I guess to be out of sorts, to be kind of groggy. And so I don't know if you knew that expression.
I think I'd heard it before. I've definitely never used it.
Okay. Well, another one of my favorite ones is poser un lapin. Do you know poser un lapin?
I heard this. I don't remember what it means though.
It's
to put a rabbit.
It's to place, to put or place a rabbit, literally, and it means to stand somebody up. So,
yes, right.
So when I heard, it was my friend who went on a date, and he came back and I was like, so how did it go? And he was really upset, and he said, "Elle m'a posé un lapin." So he said, "Oh, this girl placed me a rabbit."
Oh man!
And so I was like, "What, really?" And so I imagine the girl, just slipped in and she just like put a rabbit, and he's like, "Oh, god damn it!" and found this rabbit.
Like it's some French thing to do, like bringing a rabbit, dumping it on your lap and walking off. I heard one the other day. I was talking to, I can tell you, it was in April.
Yeah.
And I play basketball a lot every week, and I said to the French guys I play basketball with, I was like, "You coming next week?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh no, May." He said in French, but he said it's a mois de Gruyère.
That
Right?
I didn't know. I
didn't know either.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I don't know what that means." And he said, "Oh," he switched to English. He goes, "It's the month of Gruyère cheese." And I was like, "Well,
that doesn't help.
Yeah, I still don't get it." And he goes, "Well, Gruyère cheese has a lot of holes in it. There's so many public holidays. There's not going to be any basketball next month at all."
Gotcha.
So I was like, "Oh, sorry, I don't really know my French cheese." He's like, "Oliver, that's Swiss cheese." I was like, Forget it.
Yeah, you're lost. You can't talk to a French person about cheese.
Yeah, right. It's impossible. You know what he ended up doing is after that conversation, him and some of the other guys from basketball came around to my house and brought all this French cheese and wine. They put it all on my table on a big map of France. So like Camembert's here, and then we just ate all the cheese. And
Nice. It's like, oh wait, we gotta educate this guy.
Yeah, they took pity on me, But before we talk about your new English show,
Yep.
I want to talk about what we're about to do after this show. Because speaking of comedians in cars getting coffee, we're going to do a walk show, which is not really the same thing, but kind of the same thing.
So comedians walking.
Yeah, exactly. A
with coffee.
comedian and a podcast walking without coffee in Paris, which is never going to.
We'll probably wind up having coffee, right?
Yeah,
because you have to. I mean,
But I wanted to know, for people who don't know what I'm talking about, it's the walk show. We're going to do a second talk. It's like a talk show, but we're walking live in the subscriber flaneur group, I call it. And you chose. Oh, the door just closed.
oh wow, a ghost.
And you chose to go on the Grand Boulevard, and we haven't talked about that yet, and I'm intrigued.
Yeah, well, that's kind of where I live professionally. That whole strip, which I'll talk about.
Sure, but can we have a teaser taster?
Oh well, okay.
But the thing is, we're going to do it live, so the people that are listening to this, if they're not subscribed, you should sign up to watch it on the replay.
They should.
But as a teaser for me as well.
Yeah.
Is that because of the theaters around there?
Yeah. Because I mean, I perform now in République and have for a while, and then that whole strip from République to Strasbourg-Saint-Denis and then to Grand Boulevard, I performed present and past for years. That's where I pretty much perform my whole career is there. So whether it be French shows or English shows, and it's a really happening strip, let's say, for nightlife. And it's kind of, I mean, lots of tourists go there, but it is kind of off the beaten track. It is where French people go out as well. So it's not touristy in that sense. And so it's a nice strip. And I mean, the strip is not necessarily aesthetic, but when you kind of leave the strip, going either to the right, to the left, there are tons of little streets, and it's become very hip now. It's very so like it used to be a pretty dangerous neighborhood, and people didn't go there at night, and now it's becoming really what they call bobo, really hipster. So all these like old places that have been abandoned are now turning into new restaurants and bars.
Kind of like the canal area as well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely the same style. And so I don't know if we're going to veer off the main strip, but that whole strip is very interesting.
But that's the beauty of the walk show. Anything could happen.
Okay.
We can just go left or right. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, good. I didn't know. I wasn't sure if we had a
No. We rip up the script at the door.
Great.
That's what we do.
All right.
But when we first talked about walk show, a little sidetracking here, you suggested Montreuil, which is where you live. Am I pronouncing that right?
Montreuil. Yeah.
Montreuil.
Yeah.
Suburbs of Paris.
Yeah.
Is that one of the ones that are taking off as well?
It's the Brooklyn of Paris.
Oh, really? Is that where you're from in Brooklyn? You're wearing a shirt that says Brooklyn.
No, I am not from Brooklyn. I wish I was.
Where are you from?
I have Brooklyn I'm from Westchester, which is way less cool than.
Where's
than
Westchester?
It's the suburbs. It's the northern suburbs. It's the Truman Show. It's Desperate Housewives. It's like the house.
So when you say northern suburbs, does that mean above Manhattan?
Above Manhattan is the Bronx.
Yeah.
And I'm above the Bronx.
Okay, right.
So I'm like 15 minutes from the Bronx and a half hour from Manhattan.
Is that near the airport?
No, the airport is actually technically in Brooklyn. Technically in Queens. Sorry, LaGuardia and both of them are south.
Right.
East of Manhattan.
So
this
from
is north.
The suburbs of New York to the suburbs of Paris.
Yes.
And is it nice out there in Montreuil?
Yeah, I didn't know it 3 years ago. Well, it's been like 3.5 years that I've been living there, and I didn't know it very well. And now I love it. I love it in the sense like it's Brooklyn. I say it's Brooklyn how Brooklyn was 30 years ago.
Right.
In the sense that
How
it's
old
still,
are you, Sebastian?
I am 85 years old.
No one ever gives me an answer when I ask it. It's becoming a recurring thing.
Well, I said 85, but it's the no. Okay, I'm 38.
Okay,
I'm
right.
going to be 39 on Monday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you.
That's when this episode will come out. This
Oh,
episode's
great.
coming
It's
out on
coming
your
on my
birthday.
birthday,
Yeah,
yeah.
brilliant.
You
Every
did-
Monday.
You did that intentionally.
Yeah, I was waiting. I was waiting for your birthday. 39th birthday, the big one.
The big one.
It's not 40 anymore.
No, it's the 39.
So you move out to Montreuil.
Yeah.
You got a kid.
Yeah.
So it's
I
more
have
family.
Two kids. Two kids, yeah.
More family friendly out there than
Yeah,
living-
I have a joke. I say like there are more strollers than there are pigeons out there. So
Alright.
it's
Yeah,
it's
right.
Brooklyn in the sense that like this is where lots of 30-somethings are going to buy apartments and or to rent bigger. And I'm on line 9, so I don't feel I've left Paris at all.
Okay.
And it's one of the few places in the proche banlieue, meaning the cities that border Paris, where people actually from Paris go out there. You know what I mean?
To live.
To live or to go out. To
sure.
go out at night. Because
Because
they're
I mean,
actually
you can go both ways. You don't just have to be coming
exactly.
in.
Well, you know, because Paris is so Paris-centric. It's always been that the people from the suburbs come to Paris to go out. All the nightlife is here. But in Montreuil, there's several really hip bars and concert places that people actually go to from Paris. And so that's cool. And also there's just tons of restaurants opening
That's
up
cool.
there. And so yeah, that's why.
I think
I'm
when
there.
so I'm gonna get married. I'm gonna have a honeymoon and
Oh,
everything
wow.
for a long time.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But the reason I bring it up is I'm gonna be out of Paris for a while. But when I come back, we should do a
I would love to.
based on as long as all hell doesn't break loose on our first walk show.
Yeah.
Do people recognize you in the street? They must.
They sometimes.
Yeah.
Rarely.
How
I
does it go? What happens?
I get looks.
Yeah.
But I don't know why.
Because you're an attractive man in
yeah,
Paris.
that's what I
An
think.
attractive 38 and 11, 12-year-old man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So no, I don't. I mean, sometimes I get looks more in the metro. I get looks, and then the occasional someone coming up to me, or the look with the and that's it. You know,
Yeah.
like they recognize me, but sometimes they don't know from where.
Sure.
You know, and so it happens, but let's say once a day. Let's say.
Once a day. What, you're brushing off once a day? That's quite a
Yeah,
lot.
I mean, but like sometimes, as I said, I don't know if it's
Yeah.
recognizing or just.
That
giving
must
me
be
a look.
awkward if you're in a metro or if you're in a cafe or something and someone's looking at you and you're like, okay, they recognize me from YouTube or something.
Yeah.
And so do you ever sort of, take the action first and be like,
No,
I'm
never.
the guy from YouTube. They're like,
Oh,
no,
never,
sorry, you were in my
never. That's
seat."
why I would never do that.
Yeah.
I just like at the most I would do the all-knowing nod,
Yeah.
just like closing the eyes and nodding.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah, that's me.
Oh
But
my
that I just can't assume doing that. Like I don't feel right doing that. No, I let the person come up to me if that's the case. I mean, but.
And does it bother you if people come up to you?
No, I like it. I mean, because usually it's a compliment.
Sure.
Very few. It's rare that someone says, "Oh, I know you," and I hate what you
Yeah.
do. So they come up to me because they like what I do, and so yeah, it's always nice. But yeah, I mean, I realize that I'm kind of at a level of fame that's comfortable for me. Like I realize I don't want to be that much more famous because like sometimes I'm in the metro, I'm eating a pizza or something like
Yeah.
that. I don't want
Yeah.
someone to come up to me with my mouth full and like cheese coming out of my mouth.
You're
It's
eating
like,
pad thai with your finger,
Yeah.
just getting into it on the metro.
yeah, exactly. Or like a falafel with just
Yeah.
like stuff like fries and ketchup all over my mouth, and they're like, "Oh, I know," and then like, "Oh God, this guy's gross." Actually,
Yeah.
So no, there's a certain level I don't want to get.
Sure.
I want to still be able to take the metro and eat a pizza pretty much. Like
Although
that's-
when you get like fame where you're getting recognized all the time, then you don't need to take the metro.
well, I think that's.
Take it-
I think you get to a level where you take Uber all the
Yeah.
place, but I don't want to get there. I don't want to be like that. I don't
You're
want to. I want to be able to take the metro. I want to,
because
it's-
that's where you get material from as well.
Exactly,
You're
yeah,
not
I-
getting material in. That's why all the comedians and rappers, mind you,
Yeah.
they start changing their style when they get rich and successful.
Yeah, and
I think Jerry Seinfeld said something about that.
Yeah. Well, I think because your perspective, I mean, you can talk about your wealth. I mean, that's, like Chris Rock talked about it, Louis C.K. So, and it is funny. It's still funny. Like
Yeah.
Louis C.K. had this whole bit of like where he lives now in New York and it's really posh
Yeah.
and he doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
So that's interesting too, because he talks about how he's now rich, but he doesn't feel rich.
Right,
like he
right,
feels
right.
still different
Still
from the
doesn't
people
belong. Yeah,
who,
yeah,
the rich people who are used to being rich. And that was interesting. That's funny too,
Yeah.
to have that perspective.
So the big thing now, you switched from French, or you've not switched, but now you're doing a lot in English.
Yeah, well, I did it in English for a long time. I've been hosting this English comedy night, which actually is the first evening of stand-up comedy in English in France. And so when I say an evening, like it's a showcase, meaning several comics doing stand-up, which we have all over the place in the United States. It's just a comedy club where you have a host and you have several comics. And I started this night called the New York Comedy Night, which is still running, and it's been like 7 or 8 years now. And so I always was doing this in English. And then I started my one-man show in English that I did for years. I just took a break for about a year, and now I'm doing it again, but with another title and another concept.
So before we get on to your new show and new concept, how are people going to find the New York Comedy Night?
The New York Comedy Night, type New York Comedy Night in Paris in Google, you'll find it. I'm on Eventbrite. That's the best place to reserve.
Is it always the same location?
And no, it changed recently. It changed about 9 months ago. I was in one place for about 6 years, which is called the Gymnase, which we'll probably go and walk in front of.
Yeah.
And I'll show it to you. And then now I'm at the Café Oscar, which is near Grand Boulevard. So it's not far.
We can see that as well?
We can see that as well.
Cool.
And it's
there's lots of really small theaters and stuff.
Yeah,
on that.
tons.
Yeah.
Small and big. I mean, the Gymnase has 4 or 5 different rooms, and the main room is an 800-seater. It's gorgeous.
And what's the show? I mean, this is quite new that you're doing the one-man show.
The English one.
In English, I mean.
This one, yeah. So I did it in English, the one-man show, actually, for a while, but now I'm doing it again, and I'm focusing just on the French language. It's called the French Language Explained by an American.
Yeah.
And so it's an hour of me doing comedy in English, all about the French language.
Wow.
So it's kind of like a fake lesson, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't call it a lesson because I actually say in the show, I say, I'm not teaching you French, but by the end of the show, you'll at least know why you don't speak French.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not teaching them how to speak French. I'm teaching them, okay, don't worry that you don't speak French.
Right.
There are all these reasons why it's impossible.
And who's coming to the show? What sort of people?
I'm getting lots of French people. It's a mix. It's a real mix. But there's always, anytime I perform in English here in France, whether it be the New York Comedy Night or my one-man shows, it's like half French, like let's say from 40 to 80% French,
right.
And then the rest just mix. I mean, it really from all over the place.
Hang on, 40 to 80. Oh, okay. I thought you meant what you were speaking. I was like, that's a
Oh,
lot of French for you.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's the guest.
The guest. Oh, was that the question?
No. I think I got put off by the drilling behind me.
Sorry.
I thought they were drilling into the building. For a second. No, so that's the
people coming to the show.
Sure.
It's like between 40 to 80% French people.
So do you speak slower, knowing that they're foreigners?
I think unconsciously I do.
Yeah.
Because lots of French people come to the English show and they're like, oh, I understood it, and they're surprised.
Yeah.
And lots of people have told me that, like, or even at the New York Comedy Night when I'm hosting the night. So there are lots of people. The other comics are from all over the place, England, Ireland, or America. And they say that they understand me better than they understand other English speakers. I don't know if I unconsciously make an effort, or perhaps the subject matter, especially in this show. I'm talking about the French language, so even if they don't speak English that great, they know. I go into French words, so the subject matter, that's so important. If they know what you're talking about, they'll understand.
It's like if you got a hobby, or like I said, I play basketball, so it's easier for me to understand French people talking about basketball than it is about them talking about, I don't know, politics or something like that.
Sure, yeah.
Because you're on the same language. It's something that every single person.
Yeah. So that helps a lot, the subject matter.
So what's the deal with the French language then?
Everything. I mean, what do you mean? Like in the sense, like what?
I mean, why? Like,
why does it suck? Why?
I mean, how does it come that you can spend an hour talking about the French language?
Well, there's so much. I mean, I talk a lot about the expressions, like we talked about earlier, whether it be the expressions that make us laugh, like poser un lapin, or le tête dans la queue, whatever you want. So you can just go on hours with these expressions. But no, I also talk about the grammar. I talk about the fact that all the words, all the nouns have to be masculine or feminine.
Yeah.
The numbers.
Yeah.
The 78. I mean, how you have to taking a guy's phone number down takes an afternoon.
So for people who maybe don't speak French that are listening, once the numbers get beyond 60, it's like
because they just start adding because they don't have a word for 70.
Yeah.
They say 60-10 is their 70. And it's just like, how can a society be so advanced in so many different ways? It's just like you haven't come up with 70.
Yeah.
The Belgians do, and I think the Swiss do.
Yeah, they say
70.
Yeah. And we're not even talking about 80 and 90
Yeah,
yet.
and then so they add, so then it goes 60-10, 60-11, 60-12, 60-13, until they get to 60-10-9, which is 79, and then they start multiplying.
That's insane.
80 is 420.
Yeah. It's
So
just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
You know, like when I got a phone number, you can choose your own phone number when you go to free, which is
really?
very
I didn't
good.
know that.
So
Okay.
they give you like 5 or 6 options.
Yeah.
And I always pick the ones that had numbers under 60 in it.
Yeah.
So my phone number, or under 60, under 70.
Yeah, under 70,
So
yeah.
mine has 68 in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm fine with 68.
Yeah, 68 is
69
fine,
even,
yeah,
but you
yeah.
know, because it's confusing.
Yeah,
Really
because
is.
if you hear someone say 6016,
Yeah.
which is 76,
Yeah.
you don't know if you should write down 60 and then 16
Yeah.
or 76.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
There should be. What we need is a really cool phrase where we just be like, no, just text me your number,
Yeah.
or you know, or I'll give you my number because
Yeah.
it's not.
Well, thankfully, there's modern technology that you can't,
Yeah.
where I mean, imagine how it was before. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like we actually had to write down someone's number all the time and type it in.
Is the difference between 6018 and
Yeah.
78 that there's a longer pause between the two?
Probably.
So 78 and 78 is
Yeah.
that basically?
Yeah,
it?
I guess that's
Which
probably
doesn't
the
really
difference.
help when you're learning French.
No, it's very subtle. It's too subtle.
The other thing I really liked, I don't know if I'm allowed to. Well, it's on YouTube, so I guess it's out there. Is the thing you said about trusting people, Renaissance people, to make a language and the spelling of words like chateau. Can you tell me that? Can you tell the audience that, or
Well,
is that one of the jokes?
No. Everything that's on
That
the
cracked me
internet
up.
is I think you're talking about the one where I say that the French language was created by wasn't created by linguists, but created by artists of abstract expressionism.
That's
is
right.
one,
Yeah.
Where they took an E, an A, and a U.
Yeah.
And they're gonna pronounce it O, you know, and that's the thing. It's so, especially with their vowels, they love screwing with the vowels. So
Yeah.
they really took an E, an A, and a U, and you pronounce it O. And then
Yeah.
if you add an X, you know, but you don't pronounce it. So EAUX,
Yeah.
4 letters just to say O.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's
isn't it?
insane.
That's great. That's a great observation.
Yeah.
Are any French people doing that about English?
About the English language?
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Well, Gad Amalé in his show, he talks about the English language a bit. He talks about like what's really hard for the French people, which is the stress, where you stress the word, and we don't realize it, but each word has a stress.
Yeah.
The French pronounce everything the same. They don't have an accent. They don't accentuate things within the word.
Right.
We-
I shut
we
the
nat-
windows so that the drilling stops, but continue.
Okay. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. Complicated.
Right.
Just the word complicated. You know, we put the accent on a comp. Is that where it is?
Yeah,
I don't even know if I would know where the stress is.
Complicated.
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 It's on the first. Which natural for us.
Yeah.
But for a French person, it's like complicated.
Yeah.
You know, they wouldn't necessarily stress. I can't even say it probably as a French person does. So they don't.
Complicated. Yeah. That's why Italian's so easy because the stress is always
On the last one. Is that-
Maria, second last.
oh, second last. Okay.
Pizza. Yeah.
Yeah, pizza. And so that they don't know, and we know it naturally, instinctively,
Yeah.
just how they know instinctively if a noun is masculine or feminine. They just know.
Yeah.
You know, they learn the word like that, and so they just know it. And so he talks about that a little bit. And so I don't know if there are any other French, probably if there's a French comic talking about the English language, probably in the States or in England doing it.
Yeah. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about your new show. Time has wound up unbelievably. So
yeah.
what's the name of your show and how do we find it?
It's called The French Language Explained by an American.
Right.
It's every Saturday at 6 p.m. at La Nouvelle Scène. This is on a piniche, which is
on
a
a
barge.
boat.
A
Yeah,
barge.
that's a great idea.
Parked, moored, is probably the better word, moored to the quay of the Rive, the left bank. So it's right in front of Notre Dame. So it's really centrally
that's
it's beautiful. It's right in front of
Is
Notre
it
Dame.
literally like directly in front of Notre Dame?
It's
Okay.
directly in front of, the side of Notre Dame.
So you have to
because-
go down to the lower level.
so
to
to
get
the
onto it.
lower
Yeah,
level of the wharf. I don't know. The
We're
quay.
using a lot of if you're learning English listening to this podcast, you'll be struggling for the last. the peniche will be the barge will be moored to the quay.
Yeah,
Try and find the show.
I had to translate that because I was like, how do you say in peniche attaché, or I don't even know the word for more, and I had to like translate it back. Cause like, what do you say? Like, how do you call a K in English? And apparently we do have a word. It's K.
K.
It's K.
Quai. Good Scrabble
yeah.
score.
I don't know if it's an I or a Y. Actually, I think it's a Y.
Ah, yeah.
They do it with an I.
Oh,
The French do it with an I.
Yeah,
think.
because circular key in Australia, I think it's Quay actually.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
I had to, sometimes you learn English thanks
Yeah.
to French. You come
Wow.
back into the English.
That's cool having it on a barge. That's
Yeah,
not,
it's cool. It's because upstairs is a restaurant and a bar,
Right.
and downstairs is the theater,
Right.
And the upstairs is beautiful. So you're right in front of Notre Dame, and so it's all glass, so you can have dinner
nice.
in front of Notre Dame, and then go down for the show. Well, let me just specify that it's from Saturdays at 6 until the end of the month of July.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to pick it up in September. I'm still not sure if it's going to be Saturday or on Thursday, but the show will still exist.
The show must go on.
It must go on.
Yeah.
And it's called, the French Language Explained by an American. My name is Sebastian Marx. If you type either of those in Google, you'll come across
People will
my
find
show.
you. There are a lot of people listening to the show now who are looking for tips, and a lot
great.
of them are coming in the tourist-heavy month.
Nice.
Or tourist-rich month, you
Yeah,
might
rich,
say.
yeah.
So go and see him. We're going to wind it up now. That's Sebastian Marx. If you're thinking, I don't want to see him until I've seen a bit more of him, tune in on the Earful Tower Flaneurs, where we're about to walk down the Grand Boulevard, and you're going to show me the theater district and your second
Strip.
home in Paris, the Strip.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Vegas town.
Yeah,
there,
it
isn't
is.
All right, well, thank you for listening. Thanks for coming in, Sebastian.
Thank you for having me.
And good luck. And when this is out, it's your birthday. So
Wow.
happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy 39th.
Yeah, wow.
To the next 39.
You're listening to the Earful Tower Podcast.
Okay, that was Sebastian Marx, the comedian. Be sure to check his show out. The show on the Peniche sounds really good. Once again, the French language explained by an American, Sebastian Marx, sebmarx.com. Check him out. As for me, if you want to see more of the walk show, if you want to see the whole walk show, go on patreon.com/the Earful Tower. We walked, I think, about 50 minutes right through the Grand Boulevard. We popped into theater. We popped into a bar. It was a bit of fun. Check it out. And there's plenty more walk shows on the way, including one with the mayor of the 4th arrondissement, which should be in the coming days. So hopefully see you on the other side for that. And if not, I'll see you next week on Monday, as always, for the Season 3 finale of the Earful Tower before we take a little break before the honeymoon season. Until then, a bientôt.